Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to C Notes Lesson 3.1 and 3.2 about multiplying and dividing integers. Today's learning targets are to multiply and or divide two or more numbers, and the second target is to apply properties of operations to multiply and divide. First thing I want you to write down over in your notes is to multiply and divide integer rules. They are the same. Multiply and divide integer, the rules. Okay, and what the rules are is that when you have two numbers with the same sign, the answer is going to be positive. And when you have two numbers with different signs, the answer will be negative. Okay, so if I have 4, just as an example, if I have 4 times negative 2, and this is kind of goes with word problems, another way you can think of this is 4 groups of negative 2. So if we were modeling on a number line, if we had a number line down here, and I started at 0, okay, so what I could do is I had 4 groups of negative 2. Well, if this here, if I went back by 2's, negative 2, negative 4, negative 6, negative 8, whoops, that's an 8, negative 10, okay, what I would do for modeling, if I start at 0, I go back. Grouping as far as modeling is like little hops. I went back a group of negative 2, I went back another group, that's the first group, this is the second group, third group, fourth group. So the answer there would be negative 8. 4 groups of negative 2 would equal negative 8. Okay, going on to the next slide. Now we are going to practice evaluating with exponents. Evaluate with exponents. And exponents are a way of multiplying quickly. So if I have negative 1 squared or to the second power, and I want you to notice that the exponent is on the outside of the parentheses, what I will do is I'm going to take negative 1, this is called expanding out, I'm going to take negative 1 times negative 1. This right here, if you recall, means that I have two numbers that I'm multiplying together. I have two negative ones that I'm multiplying together. So I just expanded it out. So since I have a negative times a negative, I've got same signs, two number with the same signs, and that equals a positive. So my answer is going to be positive, and then I just take 1 times 1, which is 1. So my answer would be positive 1. Now, if I have another number, if I had negative 1 to the 5th power, that's the same as 5 negative 1s. So there's 2, there's 3, 4, 5. So, and I just take 2 at a time. A negative times a negative is positive. And if I take that, a positive and a negative, different signs, so the answer is negative. That negative times this negative, negative times a negative would be a positive, and then this positive times this last negative times the last negative would be a negative. So my end result will be negative in my answer, and then I've got 1 times 1 is 1, times 1 is 1, times 1 is 1, times 1 is 1. So that product is actually negative 1. Okay? I would like you to make a note that if you have something, let me see here, I want to practice writing this, a ratio of negative a over b. I could either write that, the negative, like a fraction, the negative could be out here in front of the division sign, or I could write it as a negative a over b. I could put the negative on the top, or I could put the negative on the bottom. So look at this, check this out. If I said negative 25 over 5, if I assign values to this, think about this. What is negative 25 divided by 5? It's 5, right? And this is just saying that the answer is going to be negative. Okay, so what if I had negative 25 divided by 5? I have a negative divided by a positive, which would be a negative, and 25 divided by 5 is 5. So same thing. Or if I had positive 25, and if I would have put the negative sign on the bottom, then I would have had negative 5. So a positive divided by a negative is a negative, and 25 divided by 5 is still 5. So any way you look at it, the answer is negative 5. Okay, moving on to the next slide. When we have multiplication and division together in a problem, we need to make sure that we're using the order of operations. Okay, so over here to the side, I'm going to write down follow the order of ops. And I know you guys probably talked about some silly old Aunt Sally. Okay, please excuse her, right? What did she do? Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. I like to number it, the 1, 2, 3, 4, because they're really 4 steps. And if we've got a problem such as 30 divided by negative 2 times negative 10, what we need to do is go step by step, but what we're doing here is we're looking at left to right. We don't have any parentheses, we don't have exponents, we need multiplication division. So just because multiplying, I've got a multiplication symbol here, doesn't mean I'm going to do my multiplication symbol first. Okay, actually going left to right, I'm going to do this division step first. And a positive divided by a negative is a negative, and 30 divided by 2 is 15. So then I still have this times negative 10. In looking at my sign first, I always look at my sign first. Negative times negative is a positive, and 15 times 10 is 150. So my result would be 150. Okay, now my next example is going to be now with with addition. Okay, still order of operations. So I have 13 plus negative 19 times negative 7 divided by negative 3. So does that give anybody the heebie-jeebies there? Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at, kind of use our checklist, our order of operations checklist. Parentheses. These little brackets right here are just like parentheses, so I'm going to do those first. Okay, so looking at what's inside there, I've got this operation. I've got more negatives than I do positives, so I'm really going to subtract. And I've got 6 more negatives. Okay, so then I'm going to bring down everything else that I haven't done anything with. Then I have multiplication and I've got division. So my next step, left to right, just like we did before, and negative times a negative is a positive, and 6 times 7 is 42. I still have my divided by negative 3. Okay, so I've got a positive divided by a negative, which is negative, different signs, negative, and 42 divided by 3 is 14. Okay, so there is your final answer. Well, one last example I've got for you is with absolute value. Absolute value, again, is distance from 0. So absolute value, we kind of use them kind of like parentheses. We treat it like a parenthesis problem. So I've got 4 times negative 15 divided by negative 12. Okay, so I'm going to do what's an absolute value symbol first. because it's kind of like parentheses. I'm going to do that operation, and that right there is negative 60, right? Bring everything else down that I haven't done anything with. Okay, so the distance from 0 of negative 60, that is 60 spaces. And then I still have my divided by negative 12, and a positive divided by a negative equals negative, and 60 divided by 12 is 5. So the answer there is negative 5. Okay, this concludes today's lesson over multiplying and dividing integers, where we were going to multiply and divide by 2 or more numbers, and we were going to apply properties to operations of multiplying and dividing. So right now, at the bottom of your paper, or over to the side, if you're like me and you only have room to the side, if you'll please draw a line and write 2 to 3 sentence summary over what you just learned today. Thank you and have a great day.